reporter. May I go on to my case, Your Honor? The main point of my argument answers the question, why is it necessary to uphold the 3-month rule extension? We submit, Your Honor, that it is necessary because there is a compelling state interest to forward and give premium to international obligations. The Philippines is also committed to other countries, and these commitments should be upheld. Their positions are politically designed to perform the functions called for as embodied in Article 3 of the Vienna Convention of Diplomatic Relations. This is important because the ambassador should have the power to represent the country, to negotiate with foreign government, and to forward the interests of his own nation abroad. Therefore, the presence of ambassadors play an indispensable role. Moreover, Your Honors, regardless of who the appointing authority is, regardless of whether they were appointed by the former President Arroyo, it is important to know that these political ambassadors owe their allegiance to the state because they represent the government and not the political figure. Yes, Your Honor.
But isn't the charge the affairs also a representative of the state?
Yes, Your Honor. But, Your Honor, there are other negotiations, appointments, and other similar circumstances or alike that can be only negotiated by an ambassador because an ambassador plays a distinct and different role as that of a charge of affairs. And this leads me then to question, how can the 3-month extension be necessary for these political ambassadors? We say that it is necessary in order for these political ambassadors to continue without any disruption, Your Honors, serve the duties in accordance with our international obligations. It must be noted that it is not only in the interest of our country, but as well as the interest of the receiving state, because an abrupt change or recall would necessarily entail time and effort to finish the transfer protocol. There are pending issues, Your Honor, that need urgent government attention, such as example in the case in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where 20 Filipinos are already in the immediate death row, Your Honors. We say that these ambassadors have the experience, they have the momentum, and we say that abrupt recall would be futile in our interest as we cannot automatically withdraw the current representations. Therefore, the 3-month rule extension is justified. Let us uphold it.
Daf, 2 minutes to interpolate, for instance.
Good evening, Madam Speaker. First and foremost, when you say that there is commitment and you say that their presence is indispensable, are you saying that these negotiations cannot actually be affected or cannot be actually undergone by other people in their post?
It's a qualified yes.
Okay. Would these negotiations then entail that there is this what you call compelling need for them to have this 3-month extension?
Yes, Your Honor.
Could you say also that just because an ambassador would be needing time to finish these their what you call things to do, would it take 3 months for that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can we also say that in fact they are aware that they are coterminous appointees?
Regardless, Your Honor, yes.
Okay. Can we also say that, do you agree with me that they actually are knowledgeable that since they are coterminous, their term would actually end as soon as the appointing power will also end?
Regardless, yes, Your Honor.
Would you agree with me that that since they know it already, don't they have the obligation to actually have the whole 6 years to wrap up whatever things they actually need to do for those 6 years? Am I correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. With these unfinished businesses, I'm sorry. Would you say then that in a way, just because the possible reason for them not being able to finish these businesses, whether personal or professional, is because in a way they were, can we say, negligent or probably inefficient in a way?
Shame. No, Your Honor.
So what possible reason would have led to this extension now that you were not able to wrap up these negotiations or terms of office?
Because there are a lot of pending cases. Example, in the embassy of Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, we say that there are 20 immediate people in immediate death row, ladies and gentlemen. So the ambassador has a lot of cases, and if it takes time to resolve them, it doesn't happen.
So are we going to wait for these cases to be then judged upon?
Yes, because an ambassador plays an indispensable role in resolving that
Can
case.
they be adjudged within the 3-month extension?
Not necessary.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Break it up, guys. Mr. Angelo Ventura, 4 minutes to rebut that and argue the beneficiality of revoking the order to extend the ambassador's jurisdiction.
As the second speaker, will talk about benefits of our model in 2 aspects, Mr. Speaker and members of this House. First is on the legal aspect, and second is on the economic aspect of our model, ladies and gentlemen. First, let me talk about the benefits on the legal aspect, Mr. Speaker and members of this House. The premise of this argument, Mr. Speaker, is that a country with a strong foundation on its legal system and have stable laws, Mr. Speaker, are essential elements if a government wants to have a strong nation, Mr. Speaker and members of this House. How can we achieve this, Mr. Speaker and members of this House? If we want to have stable laws, our laws, whether it's a substantive or special law, Mr. Speaker, should not be circumvented in any way, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. Yes,
should an illegal act be sanctioned just because it is beneficial?
No, sir. That's why I will be arguing that it's illegal, it's non-beneficial in the model of what they're arguing, in the model that they're proposing, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. Because the motion or topic is going in a negative way. That's why, in principle, we'll be talking about the non-benefits and craft it in a way that's beneficial to the people and to the economic perspective and legal aspect of our country, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. Now, if I may continue, Mr. Speaker, if we want to have stable laws, Mr. Speaker, as I was arguing, our laws, whether substantive or special law, should not be circumvented in any way, Mr. Speaker. If you allow our model, the Constitution and other laws like the Foreign Service Act, Mr. Speaker, and the Civil Service Law will not be circumvented in any way, Mr. Speaker and members of the House, because there's nothing in the Constitution that confers the President, Mr. Speaker, the power of extending these appointees, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. And in this case, in this particular case, the President has only the power of appointment and reappointment, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. Same goes with the Foreign Service Act and the Civil Service Law, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. Nothing on these laws, Mr. Speaker, states that the political appointees can have extended term. In fact, Mr. Speaker, under the Civil Service Law, particularly in Section 6, Mr. Speaker, of that law, the term of these people, yes, sir.
Isn't the President empowered to appoint ad interim when the Congress is not in session?
Yes, sir. But appointment and extending a term of an appointee is different from one another, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. As I go, allow me to continue, sir. Again, Mr. Speaker, particularly in Section 6 of the Civil Service Law, the term of these people or these appointees are coterminous with that of the appointing authority or subject to his pleasures, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. You see, what we're arriving at is that laws are established to be observed and recognized or respected, Mr. Speaker and members of the House, and not to be circumvented. The conclusion of this argument, Mr. Speaker, is that by not circumventing our laws, we create a more stable set of laws, Mr. Speaker, that will govern our country in the future, Mr. Speaker, and members of this House. This might be the first or initial step, Mr. Speaker, to improve our laws and the enforcement of the law as well, Mr. Speaker, and members of this House. Now, going on to the second aspect of my argument, Mr. Speaker, and members of this House, is on the economic aspect or economic benefits that will be arriving from our proposal or from our paradigm, Mr. Speaker. You see, Mr. Speaker, these ambassadors are no longer considered ambassadors under the law or under the eyes of the law, Mr. Speaker. If they will be extended, Mr. Speaker, their perks and privileges will likewise be extended, Mr. Speaker, to the prejudice of Filipino taxpayers. How will this happen, Mr. Speaker and members of the House? Because money that came from the people, Mr. Speaker, shall be spent unwisely and disadvantageously because the government will continue to fund these ambassadors and their families, Mr. Speaker. Well, in fact, yes, sir.
Will that not constitute usurpation of authority or malversation of public funds?
Yes, sir. That would fall under that crime, sir, or offense, sir. So, going on, Mr. Speaker, in fact, Mr. Speaker, that such term has been ended June 30 to 2010, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. Imagine the amount of money that will be expending or the government will spend without legal and justifiable reasons, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. And to end my argument, Mr. Speaker, such money can be allocated for better use of our national government if we adopt the model that we're arguing in this debate. Thank you.
Okay, Voltaire, 2 minutes to interpolate Angelo.
Mr. Speaker, are we not also going to entail costs even if we appoint a new ambassador?
Qualified, yes.
Okay. Is it okay to ignore the responsibility of the Philippine government towards other states simply because our law forbids its performance?
Qualified, no.
Okay. Is the extension tantamount to the reappointment of these ambassadors?
No.
Okay. Can we not have a new set of ambassadors in those respective embassies all around the world even with a 3-month extension?
It's in the discretion